Okay, welcome to the Village of Lake Bluff Joint Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals regular meeting on October 16, 2024. If we could have a call to order and roll call, please, Mr. Croak.
Sure. Member Danley.
Here.
Member Fisher.
Here.
Member Miller.
Here.
Member Russell.
Here.
Member Toll.
Here.
And Chair Peters.
Here.
And Member Sorensen is connected virtually on Zoom.
Yes, a quorum of the PCZBA is physically present at the meeting. In regards to Member Sorensen, the notice was received by a member of the PCZBA in accordance to village policy. Member Sorensen will be deemed authorized to attend the meeting electronically unless a motion objecting to the member's electronic attendance is made, seconded, and approved by at least 2/3 of the members of the PCZBA physically present at the meeting. If no such motion is made, Member Sorensen's request to attend the meeting electronically will be deemed approved. Hearing no motion, Member Sorensen's attendance is approved. All right. Agenda item number 2, non-agenda items and visitors, public comment time. As you are aware, we allocate 15 minutes at this time of the meeting to address any issue or question that's not on the agenda. And we allocate 3 minutes per individual for any such discussion. Is there anybody present physically or remotely that wishes to take advantage of that opportunity?
If either of our members on Zoom want to speak on something not on the agenda, press the button to raise your hand, please. No, they are not raising their hand.
All right. Hearing none, we'll proceed to agenda number 3, consideration of the September 18, 2024 meeting minutes. Any proposed revisions or other changes by any of the commissioners?
On page 5, third paragraph, it says, stated that residents on Sheridan Road, it should be Blodgett Avenue, would object to the increase in traffic.
Thank you, Member Miller. Anyone else?
Yeah, on page 6, second paragraph down, I think Mr. French is building a house on the north side of Blodgett, not on the west side of Blodgett.
Thank you, Member Frederick. Anyone else? And I just had 2, Mr. Croak, in section 3 and section 4. I should have recused myself from participating in the vote on the meeting minutes because I was not present at either meeting,
Oh, okay.
just so the record's clear. All right. Is there a motion to approve?
Motions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Agenda item number 4, Mr. Croak, if you'd like to introduce that, please.
Sure. We have Peter Whitmer, architect, and Todd Eltonian, builder, here for an informal workshop discussion about a proposed multifamily building at 120 Scranton Avenue, the former PNC Bank site. As far as approval process, when they go to file a formal application, it'll likely come here for a PMD approval, which would allow permitting residential uses on the first floor, which is not allowed by right in the CBD district. And also they would probably apply for a height variance for the 2-story and 30-foot limit. And then they would also be applying for a design review through the Architectural Board of Review, and both of those would go to the village board for final approval. We did receive public comments in favor by email from Lee Neisted and Mark Stolzenberg, and those were emailed out to you all, and there's a copy, paper copy in front of you too. And with that, I'll turn it over to the applicants for your presentation.
All right, great.
I can share the PowerPoint to the screen here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Do I have a, can I control it, or do you?
Oh, I can, so just
Oh, okay,
say,
great.
just tell me what you want
Okay, that works.
next, and I'll hit the button.
Did I speak into this?
Yeah,
Does this work?
Please use,
Or this?
you can use either mic, if you're standing at the lectern, the
okay.
fixed microphone is fine. The portable one is if you need to really walk up and point or something. But
Okay.
yeah, everyone who's speaking tonight, please use the microphones, even if we can hear you without, there's people attending virtually who can't hear if you don't use the microphone.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for letting us come in front of you for our first meeting for a project that we worked on. I just had to ask Drew, I guess it was 4 years ago, we were in front and had presented a project for this, for at least part of the site for what we are presenting tonight. A lot's happened in 4 years in terms of the world, pandemic. We've actually completed 2 other projects in Lake Forest in that time. So I think we've learned about the market a little bit better in the Lake Bluff, Lake Forest market and what people are looking for in terms of housing and alternative housing for this. I think before the biggest issue was the height in the 3 stories, and we economically just couldn't make that work for us in the current economic climate that we were in 4 years ago. Today, it's a little different. One is that the demand for these are pretty high in the Lake Forest, and we believe in the Lake Bluff area. So we feel like now we can propose a 2-story scheme, which is which was the main objection of our other project that we presented 4 years ago. Maybe you can go to the first slide. The existing site, I think everybody's very familiar with. I think in the 4 years, there's probably been a couple of different schemes in terms of trying to reuse the existing building for anything from a yoga studio to a restaurant, and really the economics and the impact into the city. We feel like this is really more residential oriented than commercial would be a better solution for the site. Next slide. A couple things. I just showed the one picture of the north elevation. In our proposal, we're proposing a few things. One is underground parking for all the units, so that there wouldn't be any on-grade parking for the people living there. The other is the power. We're starting to investigate our ability to bury the power lines along the north edge, which is not only an eyesore for our building, but then also for the neighbors to the north. So we intend to do that. We're looking at the possibility of just trying to bury them all the way through from block to block, if that makes sense, how that would work, because it would make sense to the eastern property too. That if we're going to do it, we probably should do all that along there. And so that's one thing that we need to work on. This is a site plan. We're showing the entrance into the underground garage on the west side, and then 5 public parking spaces, much like they are across the street on the northwest corner. Sidewalks on all the side, on the south side and on the west side. Access into we show 2 different footprints in terms of the building or the unit layouts. One, a 4-story or 4 units on the first floor, and then we show 3 units on the second floor. And what we are proposing is similar to what we've done before in our other projects, is we sell the white box. So all the units are all 100% custom for whatever the client it builds out. So, and that includes how many square feet they want in the beginning till you end up with the last piece. So I think the maximum number of units that we could have is 4, but there is a possibility that someone will come along and would want a larger unit, and so we could even them out, and I'll show you that in the upper floors where we would have 3 units per floor. So that would make a total of as many as 8 and probably as few as 6 would be the total number of units on the site. The corner, let me just go back just a second.
Okay, sure.
The first floor units, we'd like to have entrances off the sidewalk so that you come through the corners, and those will be a covered porch area. So each of those units, all the first floor units will have a covered porch and then a little outside terrace. So you really have a little yard space for each unit in itself. So you're not required to go through the main door, front door lobby to get into the unit. So it really acts as a sort of an independent unit and doesn't require to go through sort of like the, lobby space and all that. We've done that in a couple other places and people really sort of enjoy that. The single family or single floor living with access to the street directly. And go to the next slide. This shows the basement and the first floor. So the basement is basically there's a ramp that goes down and then parking underneath that with a minimum. It depends on how many units we end up on, but if we had 8 units, we'd have 2 spaces per unit. And then also with pretty substantial storage areas for each of the units that will be built out to within there. We'd also then have, obviously, electrical room and some other mechanical room that we're not showing at this point. The first floor is the same. We're showing the 4 units there. They vary in square footage from the smallest there being 2,000 square feet, the largest being a little over 3,000 square feet. And that typically, people end up with 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms with a den or a study or a library, and then typically it's open living, dining, family room kind of space is, I would say, the most typical kind of layouts that we have, although we have done some completely different ideas for people, based on their needs for what they're looking for. Go to the next slide. The second floor, we show a 3-unit layout, which would have a larger, little under, I think it's hard for me to see that, but it's, I think, 3,800 square feet. So, no, let me get this here. Yeah, 3,900 square feet would be the largest, 2,900 and 3,500 square feet. So we could move those walls around however people want. The maximum size that we could have on this, without creating another second means of egress, would be 4,000 square feet. So the units would be most likely below 4,000 square feet for that. Now, these units would have their own private roof space, outdoor space, and so that you would go up a stairwell in the unit itself and then access some outdoor space on the roof. And I will show you some pictures of what we've done in Lake Forest to give you an idea of that. And we had shown some people, we've offered to go show them just so you really get an idea what that is. Next slide. Just in terms of the elevations and how we've developed those, we really see this as a CBD building. And so what we've looked at is all the brick detailing of the 1920s buildings within the CBD in terms of how they're put together, mainly with stone and brick. And that's really what we're proposing for our building. You can go to the next one. Entrances, based on whether they're different variants for all the different kinds of entrances and what we felt was appropriate for our building in terms of scale. Next one, window configurations, arched heads, double, triple, single, all that, those combinations are really what we've done to compose our building and fit in within the CBD for that. So, I think that the language of the building, it's not a monument building. It's not a look at me kind of thing. It's really sort of a background building, just like the rest of the CBD. The landscape is really important to us. We have Mariani do the design and installation and maintenance of it because the trees and all the landscape is a vital part of the overall projects. I think you can see that in our other projects down in Lake Forest, where we really spend initially a fair amount of money and also then how it's maintained over time. You can go to the other slide. The next, so this is the south elevation and the west elevation. So you can see the arched entry into the main lobby for that. And then you can see the secondary porches on the corners, and then the entrances at the first floor level through those, and how that's broken down. We have, single, double, and triple window configurations, really to not only give the elevation variation, but also in terms of the rooms inside, how they lay out with whether it's a bathroom or a living space or a bedroom. The ramp going down to the garage, the building is actually recessed in that shadow in the west elevation. You can see that. So we need to recess that so that we can get the ramp down, the slope down to get underneath to the garage. So that's why that piece is recessed. The parapet picks up a lot of the same sort of detailing, stone and brick detailing that is in the rest of the down CBD. And what we've tried to do is break it into pieces so that they have bays. So there's a center bay and a side bay and corners to it, so to break down the overall scale of the building. Next slide. The other two elevations are all similar on all four sides, so this building would look basically the same all the way around. Obviously, the two sides are very visible from the street, but also the back side and the east side too, you really see from the streets, and so we feel that that's important. Where, I think the buildings in the CBD are not typically that. When they turn the corner, they use a common brick versus a face brick on the side. So here it's a little different piece because I think the building really does see itself in the round. You see all the elevations for that. Next slide. So we studied quite a bit on the roof and how that access or those penthouses with the stair accesses would work. We typically make the ceiling space in that lower, and also that the sight lines from the street so that you don't see any of that from the street. And these sections show that. It also shows how the ramp comes into the building, so how that comes down, the building steps back there at the ramp. And you can see that one tree is in Kevin's backyard. It's just for a scale, how large that is. We actually did measure it to see that it was accurate. The streetscape trees are pretty accurate in terms of scale. You can see the library in conjunction with that. You know what? Go back just that side one. Okay. So our top of our parapet height is 30'4". So that would be at the edge where those lines are at, and then the top of the penthouses are at 35 feet. So the pieces that you wouldn't see would be the 35 feet. The building that you see is 30 foot 4 inches. All our mechanical equipment is all somewhat residential style in terms of their compressor, the condensers that are sitting on the roof. So they'll all be hidden behind the parapet wall, so you won't see any mechanical equipment in there. The only thing that I show in this section, what we won't see, is you can see the power poles that we didn't take out of the section yet. So, but that gives you a pretty good scale of what that is there. And then the last slide that I'll show you here is an example of a rooftop space that is in the building in McKinley, the 2-story building. So what we do is put it up on pedestals, and so there's hardscape, and then there's typically we would have each of the individual owners build those out by themselves, and so that's part of the build-out costs for that. We have had all the build-outs that we've done, Mariani has designed and installed, and so typically they have some artificial grass component to them, some hardscape to it, landscape pieces, so that not only it looks great from up there, but also from down below. Then you see some greenery from the street that you would see. Other things that you can go to the next slide. That just shows the stairwell coming up into that space, and then the little brick parapets, penthouses that access this space. The other thing that you can see some vegetation that does help with some water retention in terms of drainage. So they do, there's plants there and they do take water, and so it holds water there before it goes down through the drainage system. Our site currently is pretty much 100% almost. I mean, there's a little bit of landscape in the front, but it's pretty much impermeable, the whole thing. Would work with Bluff Engineering in terms of the stormwater management, in terms of tube storage on there, in terms of what we need to do in terms of on-site detention. We would handle that most likely along the south edge and turn the corners on the east and west side in terms of the drainage system in there, because I knew that was another concern of the neighbors, that, this is a wet area, and how are we going to worsen the situation or better the situation? We really have the ability to make it better for that. So we're excited about moving forward. We did spend some time with some of the key people in the neighborhood and shown them some things, I think, with Lee, and they've understand their concerns, and we look forward to hearing your comments and moving forward with this.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Whitmer. Who'd like to start?
I'll go ahead.
Jill?
First of all, it has been a long time, and it's great to see a developer come forward and one of your reputations, so I appreciate that wholeheartedly. But I just have a couple questions on, so we have Lot 2 and Lot 3. Did you consider making it larger just to have it cohesive?
When we really reevaluated the whole site in Lot 2 and Lot 3 as part of that, we thought that two things. One is that it makes the CBD we see is really sort of stopping at the library, so that the other two lots are really into the residential neighborhood, and that this solution is sort of impeding into that space. And so that solution for those lots might be more of a more traditional house looking, roof pitch, that sorts of things, versus a CBD solution. So that was why we feel like this scale makes sense. And I think before, when we looked at the whole thing, it becomes a really big project, with that. I mean, could we in the future tie something together? I mean, we would make it so that if these two lots were tied together, I mean, we've talked about this, and we haven't talked with the owners of those lots about this, but, if there was some sort of housing type project there, we could access our garage underneath it and tie into it. One of the biggest problems with this is parking. And because when you get 8 units, or the number of units that you need to get on here, you basically look at garage doors and driveways and cars. I mean, that's a big part of the visual thing. So when you have underground parking, you take all that away. Wow, now you have trees and yards and all that, because we don't have an alley system where you can put all that stuff behind. So that's kind of our alley system. So I think in the future, the other thing is that what will Lake Bluff absorb? How many of these units do people want to spend for these to be here too, is another component to it. So I think by just having the one phase of this, it makes a lot of sense. And then, if we were to do something, or if the other people who were on the property do something, they could do a single family house like they want, they could do multifamily and that sort of thing. But we just felt like it was not really suited for having the CBD type project in there.
So how does this block format, there was some controversy in Lake Forest. I don't know if it was your project or someone else's, but it's very block formatting. You mentioned the CBD versus residential, but it is, on the other side on North Avenue, you are surrounded by residential as well. So how does this format differ than the Lake Forest ones?
How does this differ than the Lake Forest one? I think one of the things is we have two different buildings there in terms of have you driven down to it? Are you familiar with it pretty well? Okay. So the last building that we did, which was a 2-story scale, so that is very similar for that. The other is as if faces a commercial street. So this is, you know, like the 2 buildings in the front, it's basically that site, not the site behind it, which is part of that. So I think, you know, those things are different. And I think if we were to go to the lots to the east, I think that would, you know, that's where we think that is a problem. You know, where we would want a house, just as we put a house in front of the other buildings, we really want a house, you know, to meet into the context of that. So that's really what our thoughts on that are.
And the cost of underground parking, have you done any investigation? I mean, it's ideal, it's a brilliant solution. I mean, getting it below, you know, eliminating the power lines, I mean, it all sounds glorious. I don't know if you've gone that far yet, just to see the expense. And I've just been told that, you know, because you have 6 to 8 units, I don't know if you've done the numbers on what that would cost and do the underground.
Absolutely. I mean, we're very well versed on what this costs.
Right.
You know, which is fortunate. And we're very well versed on what people are willing to pay for this type of living. I mean, this is a style of living that's not available in Lake Bluff, Lake Forest, you know, down to the city. I mean, to Evanston. So, I mean, single floor living in a high finished, high ceiling, high quality, design what you want. It's just not available. I mean, and there's a fair number of people here who want to stay here, but don't want to stay in their house any longer.
Right.
And so that's really what we're finding. It's not a huge number, but it is a number, and there just is nothing here in Lake Forest. I mean, I'm sorry, in Lake Bluff, or Lake Forest for that matter,
Right.
for that, so.
I'll chime in next with a good segue, but also would like to thank you for coming and presenting what I think is a very reasonable and appropriate project. I do have a couple questions. The segue would be, you know, what is your expectation for price per unit?
So what we would look at is a price point very similar to what we had in Lake Forest. So, and now all built out, it would be somewhere between $900 to $1,000 a square foot per unit. There's 2 components to that, though. You know, the build out costs of what they do, and then the white box, which those are the 2 added together, obviously.
Okay. And in your project in Lake Forest that's similar to this, is it fully occupied?
Yeah, everything's sold. Kelmscott, you know, we were surprised at the Kelmscott project, just because the building is next to another building, which looks kind of identical, right? And that we were able to get, because of our construction type, our soundproofing between buildings, our outdoor spaces, our larger porches, our, you know, all the things that we think people want, the ability to build out whatever they want. We're able to command quite a bit more money for, you know, basically a unit that's it's similar in terms of square footage. We've actually upped the value of those existing units quite a bit. They've appreciated quite a bit. And that people really, not only from Lake Forest, but other places in the North Shore and around the Chicago area, gravitated toward it.
Great, thank you. I guess my only other question is, do you happen to know what the square footage of the existing PNC Bank building is, the footprint? Just at a, you know, rough guesstimate
I got it.
to understand the,
7,000 square feet. So maybe between 5,000 and 7,000 square feet, something like that.
so not doubling the footprint then is in the proposed, because
Well, we'd be,
Proposing
this
10.
is almost 11,000
Almost
square
11,
feet.
so-
You know, the thing is, what's really the difference is, we don't have every area paved parking lot, you know?
so probably the impervious surface is.
Oh, it's definitely
actually
less. Yeah, it's absolutely less. Yeah, I didn't run the numbers on how much less it is, but yeah, I mean, from that perspective. And I think, you know, the other thing is that, you know, rehabbing that existing building really requires a fair amount of traffic no matter what you do. so its impedance into the neighborhoods or the neighbors to the north are, if you had a restaurant there that was 5,000 square feet or 6,000 square feet, to spend the money that you have to turn a lot of tables in that restaurant. So, I think those kinds of ideas have worked through that really this solution makes sense for the site.
Thanks. Like I said, I think it's a very reasonable project for that site, and knowing that the neighbors are in support of it is big, because that is, really what we look at as in this board is to how does this going to affect the neighborhood and the neighbors particularly. So I support it. Thank you.
I agree with Aaron's sentiments. I was elated when I looked at this proposal in terms of its impact on the neighborhood, or lack thereof. It's very, very reasonable size. It's the first proposal we've seen that is realistic. Anything that's come in before, there's been a ratio much less than two parking spaces per unit. This is in the world of reality. One of the things I've always worried about with our third block there is the parking impact on the east end of our downtown that a huge project in that block would create. The library doesn't have any on-site parking for patrons, so they rely heavily on the few on-street parkings. One of our most successful long-term businesses, Bluffington's, they must survive with lunchtime business. People are not going to come and eat there if they can't get in and out and park relatively quickly. So I'm overall very, very pleased. When I first counted up your spaces in the basement and it counted 21 spaces drawn, I thought, this is amazing. But then I got out my trusty scale and realized they were drawn in at 8 foot 8 inches wide. A facility like this, they're going to want 10 foot 6 wide spaces. And you did mention in your presentation that 2 spaces per unit, which would equate to 16, not 21. So I'm hoping, those darn columns, if guys like Mike Croak could design a building like this and not have columns in the basement, it would be great for parking. I hope you can work it out to possibly squeeze in a space or two beyond the 2 spaces per unit, because parking has always been one of my big things in terms of the impact in our downtown there. The very clever idea to create some parallel parking and shift the sidewalk to create those 4 or 5 extra spaces. I think we'll end up with 4, because once again, they're drawn in at about 8 foot 8 wide, which is just too darn narrow for functionality. But we're also on the south elevation going to gain 2 more spaces because the driveways are going away. So I hope we see you back here very soon, personally, and that things haven't changed too much from what you've drawn in here. I mean, the overall height of 35 feet in the middle of the building. I mean, we allow a 34-foot ridge line on a 75-foot residential lot. So this overall is just a great, in my opinion, transition building for our community. And I hope that things don't change in the world, in our country, and that this project does move forward. And I think the only other thing I had was, what are you envisioning with these the patios that are on the street, the fence heights that you might come in with? I'm assuming they'll be right on the sidewalk or the property line, obviously.
Right. What we've done in the past, we do want to have some privacy in those spaces. So, so I think the hedgerow is about 6 feet, but the fence would only be the 4-foot metal fence. So that's open, but it's basically green, so that would be there. Similar to what's on McKinley in the fronts there. But those individual spaces that are created, outdoor spaces, really important to the unit. It really makes a difference. But I think having gates into each of those will be, you walk down, you see little gates, it breaks up the rhythm of it from the sidewalk in terms of how that is. I think the details on that too, having brick piers at the entrances as you come through there at the gates, so that it's not just a plain row. We got a lot of things to go. We're very confident in our ability to make it happen, and we're not about coming up here and trying to, wowsy and all. I mean, the projects that we've done in Lake Forest, we were able to complete on time, sell out. We've really done it, and really this market is very similar. And I think we've had a number of people who said, "Man, why don't you just do this in Lake Bluff?" And we already have people who are sort of in line for it. So, and the other is retaining, members in the community who really want to stay here, and be around their grandkids and be around their, be here and go to the restaurants and do all the other things too. And it's really great that we're able to do that here.
And then the only other thing, and this is more, maybe even an item for staff, I love challenging staff. And that's, even though we've got a really nice parking ratio on this project in terms of new spaces created, in actuality, in most projects like this, there's nothing to prevent the people from normally just parking right on the street in front of their building and not going down underground. And I hope that we can come up with some creative way to keep those spaces directly across from the library and the museum available for the public, and that they aren't just, because then we could have 100 spaces underground, and if all the people that own that park at grade and take up all the street spaces, then it defeats the purpose of trying to help our businesses and the library and the museum at that end of our business district. So I don't know what that magic item would be, but I hope that I can be pleasantly surprised next month or 2 months from now when we see this again.
Is there a time limit for all those spaces now currently? Isn't it a 2-hour time limit?
2 hour.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to deter a fair number of people for that.
I still throw out the challenge.
Yeah. I mean, that's one, that'd be.
I understand.
Yeah. We have a fair number, because we're such a similar project in limited parking in the other buildings too. Now, the parking now is taken up mainly by construction people building out the other building, but the parking impact on the street is really minimal. We have 13 units and 6 units and another 5 units, and we have, I don't know, maybe 12 spaces on the street. And very rarely are they, most of the time they're not taken for that. So, no, that's
Okay.
great.
Anyway, I'm
Yeah, that's
just
good.
letting you
That's
know what
well noted. Yeah,
my issues are. So,
great.
thanks.
Thanks.
Good. I hope that you can move forward.
Well, I really like the scale of it. I like the fact that you're not doing the extra 2 lots. I didn't mind that at all. The first time around, I wasn't on the board, but obviously the 2 stories helps a lot. The fact that it's not living space there. Can you just relate it to the 3rd building that you guys have done in Lake Forest? That's a 3-story, right?
No,
It is
it's 2
2-story.
stories, yeah.
Okay.
So if you go look at that building, very similar in
Okay,
terms of the height.
that's what I was
height of it,
thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the streetscape, yeah. This is about half as long.
Okay.
That building is much longer. So in terms of the length of it, it's quite a bit shorter,
Right.
but its height is very similar.
Okay, so, they have one that they have done, and that kind of can give a concrete perspective to it, too. You've done their mixed use, in a sense, because you've got single-family, you're transitional.
Correct.
Right there, too, which is similar to here. So I think they at least have experience in juggling that portion of it. So, assuming that those kind of parking things and such can be worked on and everything, I think, and I was happy to see that some of the neighbors had already sent letters that they were pleased with it and such. I think that makes a huge difference. But I think overall, I think there's a market for it, and, it's a small product in a sense and a small market, but I think it is a good fit for the community. So I'm in favor.
Thank you, Deb. Commissioner Miller.
I think everybody said pretty much everything I would have asked and then some. So I have no problems with this, as long as the neighbors are on board, which it certainly seems like, at least the two vocal neighbors from before. So, yeah, I have no objections, and I think this should go forward.
Right.
Thank you, thank you. Ms. Sorensen?
Hi. Yeah, I think most of my questions have been addressed, and to repeat what fellow commissioners have said, I appreciate that this has been previewed with the neighbors, and the work to overcome any objections was key, and that's why you're back here. So that's really good news. I guess the only question I want to tug on a little bit is the stormwater issue. And to that end, if you're going to landscape up on the roof, would you consider maybe a portion being a green roof, or like an extensive green roof that may be of some benefit?
So as I showed in those other pictures, there's sedum typically in the design. So I would say maybe a quarter of the roof that gets designed would have sedum, which is basically a green roof. There are other plant materials on there. So I think, that piece of it, we really let that up to the homeowner who buys the unit to build that out. But I think, as we show other examples, people really enjoy looking at it, not only the green roof for the water, but also just visually. So I think naturally that we'll have some green roof areas up there as people, build them out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. The sedum is a less intensive green roof. So might be something that goes into the conversation later on.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Okay, I just had a couple follow-up questions. The structures in Lake Forest, the one is on the east side of the train station, is that correct?
Correct. There's 2 3-story buildings on the east side of the train station, and behind that is a 2-story building. And that's the one that this is similar to.
Okay.
And what's the address of the two stores?
So the building that I'm talking about is 715, 719 is the building in the rear. 705 and 729, 723 are the other 2 buildings.
They have a McKinley, all of them have
All have
McKinley?
McKinley addresses, yeah.
And there was a second project?
The Kelmscott project, which we're just bricking now, which is on Laurel. It's going up just in the sort of west of Sophia's. It's a new building there that's going up. We're just about completed. It's all sold. And so we're completing the exterior of that right now. The one elevation needs to be bricked, and then we'll pretty much have that done. People will be moving in there next summer.
Okay. No, because I go bike by the McKinley Street property
Yeah,
about
I mean,
3 or 4
I'm-
days a week, and that's
Yeah, I'm happy
really
to,
fascinating.
if you want to come by, and I'll happy to show you it or show you the roof, or, a few neighbors I've invited, and they were able to see it. And I think it really does help to, see it physically, and in drawings and all this, people just don't get it. And once they see it, they're, it's pretty convincing.
Oh, yeah. No, very nicely done in Lake Forest. The dimensions of the penthouse structures, what are you looking at there, sir?
I think all in, it's, each one individually is probably about 20 feet by 18 feet or something like that. So there's 4 of those together.
So when you
So-
look at the schematic, it's the inner structures?
Yeah, you see we just diagrammatically put in stairs in there so that those half circles would be stairs that would come up.
Okay.
So that's the spaces that we have.
And then the other,
We'll obviously dimension all that and get that. They're pretty similar to the size, actually they're identical to the size of the ones at McKinley. The advantage we have here of this building, it's deeper, where the McKinley building is relatively narrow. It's probably half the width of this, so this allows that to not see it from the street, basically, because you're back further on the roof.
And then, is it an elevator building, or is it all?
Yeah, there's a elevator for, just one public elevator. To access the roofs, you have to go up a stairs. We have put in residential style elevators for people who wanted to, it would be basically a residential style elevator, so it doesn't have an override, so you don't have any more height. And it would be within the unit itself if you wanted to get an elevator to go up to your roof. We have, in 2 of the units that we've done, we've done that for people.
Okay.
Is there fencing between the,
There will be fencing between the 2 on each end for privacy.
4 foot or?
It would be, typically what we've done is have it down at 4 foot, and then as it goes back up to the building, then it goes up on a slope, so they have privacy when it's closer to the building itself.
Yeah, no, it's a, like my colleagues have said, very, very fascinating proposal. The work that you did in Lake Forest, at least the one that I'm familiar with, is very nicely done. So this is a very exciting proposal, so.
Good. We're excited about it and look forward to, going through the process and making it better and learning about it and getting our parking spaces all dimensioned out correctly and all that. I mean, one of the things is that, we've built each one of the buildings, we've built a little different because we learned from the one before. So from the first building, we did a little things different, and now the second building, third building, we've done different things, a little bit structurally different. So, sort of doing we don't do this in our profession very much, to build the same thing, similar type buildings again, so you can make them a little better. You find things that work and things that don't work so well, and so we can, make better buildings.
No, thank you very much. I just, do we ask the public if they have any comments?
Yeah, we can.
Any other
public
comments
comment
from the commissioners right now? I guess, Mr. Whitmer, what we'd like to do is just ask if anyone from the public has any questions. We'll keep them brief, but this is your opportunity, at least in this session. Yes, sir. And if you could state your name for the record, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kevin Considine. I live at 125 East North Avenue, and I've been in Lake Bluff for 22 years. First off, I want to say thank you for coming back and being willing to take another swing. I'm really not going to say anything additive to all of your comments other than this is immediately over my back fence. So Peter referenced the tree. That's my tree. And I think it's a great plan. And we appreciate the quality with which and the detail, bearing the power lines and some other things. I think it'll be great. I think it'll be terrific for the village. I really appreciate the way that they've treated the neighbors, reaching out to all of us to walk us through it, has been really, really terrific. So sounds like from your comments, obviously it's early, but sounds like there's a lot of support, but just wanted to build on that. You've got some comments from some other neighbors, but figured I'd add mine to the record. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Considine. And the fact that they did reach out to the neighbors early on, I think is very, very critical. Thank you. Anyone else? Mike?
Michael Goldsberry. I'm at East North Avenue here in Lake Bluff. I've lived in Lake Bluff for 50 years, so a lot of pride and joy with being part of that. As a former PCZBA member, I appreciate everything that everyone here does. This is not an easy job to take a lot of different opinions and try and do what's the best for the village. I don't really have any comments about the plan. I thought the plan was well done. I think it's an excellent plan. I guess the only question I really have is this the right plan for the right place? I do know that we have other development that the village has to think about. I still don't know what's going on with Stonebridge. Would something like this be a better addition to Stonebridge to try and help us get that going? It's a beautiful design. Does it make more sense to have it there than in Lake Bluff? As people that have been on this board knows, my big concern is Lake Bluff turning into the Glen. And I have big concerns that this is the first building that will start that whole block becoming more like the Glen, where we'll have a lot more condos, a lot more buildings like that. again, and I only say that in jest because Drew's here, but, the Glen, if I wanted the Glen, I would live in the Glen. This is a special place. People come here all the time. They talk about how special Lake Bluff is. I do have some serious concerns. This is step one in making that whole side of the road, nothing but condos and giant brick, and I just think we lose something. So I can't say my comment is with the design. Again, I think it's a great design. It looks great. It's professional. It's everything like that. But I think I'm a little more upstream with my thinking about what are we trying to accomplish here? What do we want to have in Lake Bluff? When I was on the PCZBA, I always thought about our decisions as 100-year decisions, which is a strange thing perhaps, but sometimes I think you have to think about Lake Bluff that way. And so, again, this isn't really anything for the folks trying to make this petition, but more what's our plan for this type of housing? I mean, do we want to have more condo housing? I think this is maybe 8 people that will live in this. I mean, are we willing to have this type of structure in Lake Bluff to really benefit a few people and not really benefit the rest of the community, in my opinion? I don't think this is going to be a big driver. As a former business owner here, I don't think this is going to make a big difference on tax revenue or anything like that. But, I do think there are some other things to think about as far as, what's the housing, what's the mix of housing, and those are really big decisions and not necessarily a fair consideration for these folks. But, I do have some concerns. If we approve this, do we start getting other developers coming in who might not have the same type of attention to detail and understand the community like we do? Then are we kind of putting ourselves at risk to see that whole north side of the street become something else, and who knows, other parts of Lake Bluff becoming something else? So I guess more of I'm not here to say that I'm against it. I guess just more of to me, there's a bigger picture here, and I just want to make sure we think it all the way through. I'm not a neighbor per se by this community, and there's no doubt we need to do something with Block 3. It's been vacant for way too long. It's a wasted space, but, is putting more housing the best use of that space? I don't think that's something that the village, in my opinion, has totally explored. Are there other things we could do with that really special transition from our little downtown to the rest of the village? I am someone that lives down the street on East North Avenue. I certainly have concerns about the water. There were some good questions about the stormwater. We already are doing a lot to try and fix some of the stormwater issues we have in Lake Bluff. There's that natural swale, just as a reminder, that comes down and goes through. So, I do worry about some of these bigger houses that have been going in, not just this development, but, we're losing a lot of trees. I think the trees that are on the property next to it will be gone in 5 years. And hey, that's part of reality, I suppose. But, are we speeding up some things, changing some things more than we need to? So that's my comments, more of thinking about the bigger picture more than just this, which may or may not be a fair use of this time, but I do think it's something I'd be concerned about. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Goldsberry. Anyone else?
We do have one participant on Zoom. If you want to, comment from Zoom, please hit the button to raise your hand, and I'll give you the ability to speak there.
Well, hearing nothing from the outside. Any other comments or questions from the commissioners?
So what's your perceived timeframe for this to come back and make it more formalized?
We would like to move ahead as quickly as we can. So I think if we can get on the next, Drew, we talked about getting on the next meeting and move this, we're ready to move
You're
forward.
that far advanced?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think we have, we've laid out, we've probably done more drawings than you want to know, just to make sure that it works. So we're ready to move forward right away.
Thank you.
And I guess, Mr. Whitman, and you don't have to answer this question, but you control the property?
We have it under contract, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation and the question and answer. right. Agenda item number 5, Commissioners report. Next couple meetings, Michael, when are they scheduled?
I don't recall the dates, but our usual Wednesday for November and December.
Guess, is everybody comfortable with those 2 Wednesdays? I don't have the exact date.
I could pull it up.
The 20th, and the 20th is, November 20th is the third Wednesday in November, and then December 18th, that's the third Wednesday in December. So December 18, November 20.
Great, thank you. All right. Any other topics for discussion?
Question for staff. Have we heard back from our polo club proposal people?
No, we haven't heard from them. I don't think they're going forward with that.
Okay.
If they were being honest and not wanting a fight, I would hope that they
Yeah,
would reconsider.
right.
Great. Agenda item number 6, is there a motion?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Very productive.
Right.